Hey there, this is Natalie, and while the show itself won't be launching on Netflix until November the 19th, so don't forget to have Siri mark down that important date for you, Netflix's Cowboy Bebop live-action remake has had its premiere, and the initial reviews from critics are mostly saying, in the elaborate way that people paid by the word are wont to do, that it's pretty much terrible. Now, obviously, I haven't seen it myself yet, and you can tell that the majority of reviews we're getting are from people who are more generally concerned with Western movies and TV than with anime. By the fact, a lot of the reviews open with things like, "Anime fans have been waiting with anticipation to see if the show will live up to their high expectations," which nobody in the anime community would actually say, given the reaction to hearing the show was being made was more like the "why" heard around the world. Still, you'd generally expect the reception to a show like this from people outside of the anime community. You know, people who tend to think live action is the ultimate form of media and never question why such a thing as a live action anime adaptation would ever be seen as necessary, would be more positive than the reception we'll no doubt be seeing from anime fans, probably including me, when the series is launched to the public. And yet, while most of them do praise some elements, like the performances of the lead actors, most reviews I've seen basically just confirm what anyone could have told you as soon as the project was announced. That everything looks kind of crappy, where it's unsurprisingly a lot more difficult to realise a futuristic sci-fi series that takes place across multiple planets in live action than it is to draw it. That none of the changes made to the story improve it in any way, in most cases making it significantly worse, and that the whole thing takes on the feel of a competent pub band covering an iconic hit song. Tolerable, but if you had the choice, you'd never pick it over listening to the original. Indiewire says, "Bebop diehards will be appalled, while newbies will struggle to imagine why people have been making such a big deal about the anime for the last 20 years. They rated it a D. Slant says, "At worst, Netflix's take on the 1998 sci-fi anime series Cowboy Bebop recalls the redundancy and general inferiority of a live-action remake of a Disney animated film." They gave it 1.5 stars. Screenrant says, "Despite having a few bright spots, the general consensus is that it ultimately falls flat, as both an adaptation and as a work of its own." They didn't give it a rating in that article, though NME, who gave it 2 stars, said, "Just another show. Just another sausage stuck in the grooves of the pop culture conveyor belt. Just another sacrifice to the relentless churn of the streaming machine. When will they ever learn?" There were some positive notes in most of these reviews, and some reviews like Vanity Fair's do take a positive look overall. But the positive takes tend to be more on things like the casting and the fact the soundtrack managed to keep some of the original flair of the original. Nobody seems to be particularly enamoured with the story and character changes as an adaptation, or the live action's version of the story in general. There's a sense that it feels like just another Netflix action series, which perhaps, if it was a new IP, would be good enough as a mid-tier show. But where it's adapting something that did manage to be more than just another sci-fi anime series, it's at best redundant. But what are some of the changes that the show has made? Well, we know from the controversy when the trailer launched that they changed Faye's design to a less revealing outfit, which I agree was a bit of a silly decision, given she is a character that uses the fact that she's sexy in her favour. And while they said it was because the new outfit was more realistic for fighting in, I can tell you, as a woman who does martial arts, that I'd much rather fight in shorts than leather pants. Yes, leather pants are known for being super stretchy and easy to move in. Still though, I could see Faye's original outfit from the anime perhaps looking a bit too cartoonish for the tone it seems they were trying to go for, and so I'm not surprised they did opt to change it. I just think people would have reacted less negatively if they'd changed it to something that felt like something the Faye Valentine we know would wear, rather than making it feel like she was being covered up, so nobody would complain that the sexy character was sexy. But I'm pretty sure it would only take a few minutes to get used to that. And yes, apparently Faye does appear in the first episode in this version. But one thing I don't think anybody is likely to get used to at all is that there seems to be no sign of Radical Edward in this adaptation. This feels kind of like when there was a Japanese live-action movie of Attack on Titan and they for some reason decided not to have Levi in it. Yeah, I'm sure everyone will be really grateful you took out one of the most iconic characters from the iconic series. It is possible Ed just isn't in the first season, but that seems like an even weirder choice than dropping her altogether. Unless they just didn't realise how much people would miss the character until the trailer came out, and so decided to make provisions to add Ed in when and if a season 2 ever happens. And if there's any weird noise in this part of the video, it's because I have a cat called Ed, and every time I say Ed, he thinks I'm talking to him. But actually, maybe we should be grateful, because I think the reason Ed was originally shelved, rather than being introduced fairly early in the series like she is in the original, is that they probably couldn't think of a way to write Ed for a 2021 Netflix audience that wasn't going to piss someone off. People were already annoyed that they changed the male character of Gren, who grew breasts as the result of experiments that were done on him, into a non-binary character, played by a non-binary actor. This isn't because nobody wanted to see a non-binary character or actor, but because people liked the character as he was, and it seemed to a lot of people like a performative display of wokeness. We'll have to reserve judgment on how Gren plays out in the series until we see it, but the reviews that did mention the character felt the new Gren was just kind of there, and pretty bland. But with Ed, there were already people arguing about the gender identity of the character when the trailer came out, with a lot of fans pointing to the fact Ed, who has a boy's name and is often taken to be a boy, outright says she's a girl in the original series. I personally always took Ed, who is a kid, to be a girl. A tomboyish girl, but also a character who just doesn't really care about that sort of thing. The creator said Ed doesn't really conform to anything we know, and could be a character where you wonder if she's even human. But while the option would be there to just write and portray Ed as she is in the original, that would be missing an opportunity for Netflix to do some weird pandering of the type nobody enjoys, and make Ed's gender into a big thing, that the character actually does have many thoughts on, which we'd have to hear all about. I can't imagine a Cowboy Bebop without Ed being as good, but I also can only imagine a version of the character, updated for 2021 Western audiences, to be awful, so it's actually hard to say whether it was a good or bad decision when you think about that context. As for that talk of a season 2, it does seem like Netflix has been expecting this show to be a big success. I've seen reports floating around that season 2 is already being worked on, and that there will also be a spin-off comic series. It seems weird that they would expect this to do well, based on the disinterested reception from fans of the original, and the track record of live-action anime adaptations in general, especially Western-made ones. I don't know if the idea is that because a lot of the Disney live-action remakes have proven to be a license to print money, the same will apply if they adapt anime people love, but so far they haven't had any hits in their attempts to do this. I think there could be a lot of reasons why the Disney remakes succeed and the anime ones fail, which relate to the fan bases themselves and the fact that people's attachment to anime tends to be more about the story and characters than about nostalgia. Most of those old Disney animated movies were simple fairy tales everybody already knew. You were never watching Beauty and the Beast to see what interesting stuff would happen in the plot, even as a child. But with something like Death Note or Cowboy Bebop, your attachment to it is about more than just, I watched this 100 times when I was 7. Plus, you probably weren't actually a child when you first watched the anime, no matter when you were born. The anime series that did attract a younger audience, like Shonen Battle series or Magical Girl shows, are all heavy on battles, powers, and character designs that look great in a stylized anime form, but look absolutely ridiculous when translated to live action, in a way that princesses in ball gowns and people having tame sword fights in fairy tales do not. So those anime adaptations end up being terrible too. Dragon Ball Evolution was so bad that the mangaka behind Dragon Ball, Toriyama, who had nothing to do with the movie, basically brought the series out of retirement just so it wouldn't be the last thing people associated with Dragon Ball. It could be that one day there will be a good live-action Western anime adaptation, but for now it seems like, just as with video game adaptations, the assumption when you hear about a new one is that it will probably suck, just like all of the rest. And from the initial reviews, it looks like Cowboy Bebop won't be the one to change people's minds. Still, I do plan to check it out when it becomes available and to make a video about it when I can talk about it from the perspective of someone who's actually seen it, so I will be trying to give it a fair chance. It does sound like the actors do a good job with what they're given, and the casting has been largely applauded. Other than the fact John Cho, who plays Spike, is twice Spike's age in the original canon, he seems to have gone down well with reviewers. And Mustafa Shakir, who played Bushmaster in Netflix's Luke Cage and plays Jet Black here, and Daniela Pineda, who plays Faye, have also been praised in almost every review. Plus, while patchy, people do seem to think the show has some degree of style, and so it seems like there are at least some things to make watching the new Cowboy Bebop more entertaining than, say, watching High Guardian Spice was. I will say though, if I wasn't an AniTuber, so was watching stuff purely for my own entertainment, rather than to try and understand the discussion around it in the anime community, I'd probably never watch this show, and just rewatch the anime instead. But what do you guys think? Will you be watching Cowboy Bebop or giving it a miss? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thank you to my supporters on Patreon, and to all of you who support my channel by watching my videos and talking to me in the comments. Thank you for watching this one, and I hope to see you again very soon.